Subscribe to my YouTube channel for deeply emotional, romantic, and mature stories that echo through your heart. Don't forget to like, share, and comment to support meaningful storytelling. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Maya stacked the last of the quarterly reports into a cardboard box, her shoulders aching from the repetitive motion. It was nearly 7 in the evening, and the office building had emptied hours ago, leaving only the security guard and herself in the maze of cubicles that made up Henderson and Associates accounting firm. She had volunteered to stay late to help prepare for the office relocation, partly because she needed the overtime pay, but mostly because she had nowhere else to be. Her small apartment felt too quiet these days, too full of memories she was trying to forget. Work had become her sanctuary, even when it meant lifting boxes that seemed to grow heavier with each passing hour. "You're still here?" The voice made her jump, and she turned to find Daniel Henderson standing in the doorway, his tie loosened and his usually perfect hair slightly disheveled. At 28, he was only 3 years older than Maya, but the weight of expectation that came with being the boss's son seemed to age him in ways that had nothing to do with time. "I could ask you the same thing," Maya replied, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. She had always been careful to maintain professional boundaries with Daniel, especially given his position in the company. But tonight, something in his expression seemed different, softer, more vulnerable than she was used to seeing. Daniel stepped into the room, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. "Dad asked me to check on the packing progress. He's worried we won't be ready for the movers tomorrow." He paused, his gaze taking in the towers of boxes surrounding Maya's desk. "Looks like you've been busy." "Someone has to be," Maya said, immediately regretting the edge in her voice. It wasn't Daniel's fault that his father worked his employees to the bone while expecting miracles. "Sorry, I didn't mean." "No, you're right." Daniel moved closer, and Maya caught a hint of his cologne, something clean and expensive that made her heart skip in a way that had nothing to do with the late hour. "This is too much for one person, let me help." Maya shook her head. "You don't have to. I want to." The sincerity in his voice stopped her protests. "Besides, I'm partly responsible for this mess. Dad's been so focused on the new office that he hasn't thought about the logistics of actually getting there." For the next hour they worked in comfortable silence, their movements becoming synchronized as they packed files and office supplies. Maya found herself stealing glances at Daniel as he worked, noticing the way his shirt stretched across his shoulders when he reached for something high, the concentration that furrowed his brow when he tried to fit too many items into a single box. She had always been attracted to him. What woman in the office wasn't? That she had never allowed herself to think beyond that initial flutter of interest. Men like Daniel Henderson didn't date women like Maya Chen. She was the daughter of immigrants who had worked 2 jobs each to put her through college, while he had grown up in a world of private schools and summer houses. The gap between their worlds seemed as vast as an ocean. "You know," Daniel said, breaking the silence as he sealed another box with tape, "I've always wondered about you." Maya's hand stilled on the files she was organizing. "What do you mean?" "You're different from the other people who work here. Quieter, but not in a shy way. More like you're always thinking about something important." He looked up at her, and Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I used to wonder what you were thinking about." "Probably just work," Maya said, but her voice came out breathless. "I tend to overthink things." "I doubt that." Daniel stood up, brushing dust from his knees. Someone who overthinks things wouldn't have volunteered to stay late to help with something that isn't even in their job description. Maya felt something shift in the air between them, a tension that had nothing to do with the work they were doing. She had felt it before, in stolen moments when their eyes would meet across the conference room, or when Daniel would linger by her desk a little longer than necessary when discussing a project. But tonight, with the empty office around them, and the intimate atmosphere created by their shared task, it felt impossible to ignore. Maya, Daniel said softly, and the way he said her name sent a shiver down her spine. Can I ask you something? She nodded, not trusting her voice. Are you happy here? I mean, really happy? The question caught her off guard. She had expected him to ask about work, about the move, about anything other than her personal satisfaction. Why do you ask? Because sometimes I watch you in meetings and you look like you're somewhere else entirely. Like you're dreaming about something bigger than quarterly reports and budget analyzes. He took a step closer, and Maya could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. I recognized the look because I have it too. Maya's heart began to race. This was dangerous territory, the kind of conversation that could change everything between them. But something about the vulnerability in Daniel's voice, the way he was looking at her like she was something precious and fragile, made her want to be honest. I used to want to be a writer, she admitted quietly. I studied journalism in college. But when I graduated, there weren't many opportunities. This job was supposed to be temporary, just until I saved enough money to freelance, but she shrugged. Life has a way of getting in the way of dreams. What kind of writing? Daniel asked, his eyes lighting up with genuine interest. Stories mostly. About people, about the connections we make, about how our lives intersect in unexpected ways. Maya felt herself opening up in a way she rarely did, especially at work. I used to think that everyone has a story worth telling, but somewhere along the way, I stopped believing in mine. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, and Maya wondered if she had said too much. But when he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. I think you have an incredible story, he said. I think you're one of the most interesting people I've ever met, and I think it's a crime that you're wasting your talent on spreadsheets and filing cabinets. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Daniel ... I know this is probably inappropriate, he continued, running a hand through his hair. I know I'm your boss's son, and you probably think I'm some privileged kid who doesn't understand the real world. But I've been watching you for months, Maya, and I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop wondering what it would be like to know you, really know you, outside of these walls. The confession hung between them like a bridge that Maya could either cross or burn. She thought about all the reasons she should step back, should maintain the professional distance that had kept her safe for so long. But she also thought about the loneliness that had been eating at her for months, the way Daniel's presence seemed to fill the empty spaces in her life. I think about you too, she whispered, and the admission felt like jumping off a cliff. Daniel's eyes widened with something that looked like relief and wonder. You do? Every day, Maya said, her voice growing stronger. I think about what it would be like to have a real conversation with you, to see you laugh, to know what you're like when you're not carrying the weight of everyone's expectations. She paused, gathering her courage. I think about what it would be like to be with someone who sees me the way you just described. Daniel moved closer, close enough that Maya could feel the warmth radiating from his body. Maya, wait. Maya held up a hand, reality crashing back in. This is crazy. You're the boss's son. I'm just an accountant. This could never work. Why? Not? Daniel asked, his voice urgent. Because of my father. Because of work. Those are just circumstances, Maya. They don't define who we are or what we feel. But they do define our lives, Maya said, her heart breaking even as she said the words. I can't afford to lose this job, Daniel. I have student loans, rent, responsibilities. And you have a future mapped out for you that probably doesn't include someone like me. Someone like you. Daniel's voice was incredulous. Maya, you're brilliant, you're kind, you're beautiful inside and out. Any man would be lucky to have you in his life. But would your father think so? Maya asked quietly. Would your family? Would the board of directors? Daniel's silence was answer enough, and Maya felt something inside her chest crack. She had known this moment would come, had known that whatever was building between them would eventually run up against the reality of their different worlds. I should go, she said, reaching for her purse. It's getting late. Maya, wait. Daniel caught her hand, his touch sending electricity up her arm. Don't leave like this. We can figure this out. We can what? Maya asked, her voice breaking. Sneak around. Hide what we feel. I've spent my whole life trying to build something real, Daniel. I can't afford to risk it all on a maybe. She pulled her hand free and headed for the door. But Daniel's voice stopped her. What if it's not a maybe? Maya turned back, her heart hammering in her chest. What do you mean? What if I told you that I've been thinking about leaving the company? That I've been planning to start my own business? Something that doesn't involve working for my father? Daniel's eyes were intense, desperate. What if I told you that meeting you, really seeing you, has made me realize that I want to build something of my own? Something that matters? Maya stared at him, her mind reeling. Are you serious? I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Daniel stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. I know this is sudden. I know it's complicated, but I also know that I've been sleepwalking through my life until tonight. Until you. Maya felt tears prick at her eyes. Daniel, I can't ask you to change your life for me. You're not asking. I'm choosing. He reached up to cup her face gently, his thumb brushing away a tear she didn't realize had fallen. I'm choosing to take a chance on something real. Something that could be beautiful if we let it. And if it doesn't work out? Maya asked, her voice barely audible. Then at least we'll know we tried. Daniel's eyes searched hers. Maya, I've spent my whole life playing it safe, following the path that was laid out for me. But safe doesn't mean happy, and I'm tired of pretending that it does. Maya closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. She thought about her carefully constructed life, her plans, her need for security. But she also thought about the emptiness that had been growing inside her, the sense that she was watching her life happen from the outside. I'm scared, she admitted. Me too, Daniel said softly. But I'm more scared of spending the rest of my life wondering what might have been. Maya opened her eyes to find Daniel watching her with an expression so tender it made her heart ache. In that moment, she realized that some risks were worth taking, that some chances were worth the fear they brought. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Daniel's voice was full of hope. Okay, Maya said more firmly. But we do this right. No sneaking around, no hiding. If we're going to try this, we're going to be honest about it. Daniel's smile was brighter than any of the fluorescent lights overhead. Are you sure? No, Maya said, and she couldn't help but smile back. But I'm sure that I want to find out what happens if we try. Daniel leaned closer, and Maya's breath caught as she realized he was going to kiss her. But instead of pressing his lips to hers, he rested his forehead against hers, his breathing uneven. I've wanted to do this for so long, he murmured. Then why don't you? Maya asked, her voice barely a whisper. Because once I do, there's no going back, Daniel said. Once I kiss you, Maya-chan, I'm going to be completely gone. Maya felt a smile tug at her lips. I think I'm already gone. Daniel's eyes darkened with something that made Maya's knees weak. In that case, T. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. It was nothing like the passionate, desperate kisses Maya had read about in romance novels. Instead, it was tender, reverent, like Daniel was trying to memorize the moment. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "Wow," Maya breathed. "Yeah," Daniel agreed, his voice rough. "Wow." They stood there for a moment, foreheads touching, trying to process what had just happened. Maya felt like her entire world had shifted on its axis, like everything she thought she knew about her life had been rewritten in the space of a single kiss. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Now," Daniel said, his thumb tracing circles on her cheek, "we figure it out together. One step at a time." Maya nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. For the first time in years, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. "I should probably finish packing these boxes," she said, but she made no move to step away from Daniel. "They can wait," Daniel said, his arms tightening around her. "Right now, I just want to hold you." Maya melted into his embrace, feeling safe and cherished in a way she had never experienced before. She thought about all the romance novels she had read, all the movies she had watched, and realized that none of them had captured this feeling, this sense of coming home to someone, of finding the piece of herself she hadn't even known was missing. "Daniel," she said softly. "I'm glad you offered to help me move boxes." Daniel's laugh was warm against her ear. "Best decision I ever made." As they stood there in the empty office, surrounded by cardboard boxes and the detritus of their old lives, Maya realized that sometimes the most important changes happened in the most ordinary moments. Sometimes love didn't announce itself with grand gestures or dramatic declarations. Sometimes it crept up on you while you were doing mundane tasks, disguised as a simple offer to help. "Maya?" Daniel said, pulling back to look at her. "Yes?" "Tomorrow, when we tell my father about us, about my plans to leave the company, are you going to be okay with whatever happens?" Maya considered the question seriously. She thought about her job, her security, her carefully planned future. Then she thought about the way Daniel looked at her, the way he made her feel like she was worth taking risks for. "I'm going to be more than okay," she said. "I'm going to be free." Daniel's smile was radiant. "I love the sound of that." "Daniel?" "Yes? I think I'm falling in love with you." The words hung in the air between them, brave and terrifying and beautiful. Daniel's eyes filled with an emotion so intense it took Maya's breath away. "I think I've been falling in love with you since the day you started working here," he said. "I just didn't know it until tonight." Maya felt tears threaten again, but this time they were tears of joy. "So what do we do now?" "Now," Daniel said, taking her hand in his, "we start our story." As Maya looked into Daniel's eyes, she realized that he was right. This wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. The beginning of something that had been building between them for months, something that had finally found its moment to bloom. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars, and Maya felt like she was looking at the world with new eyes. Everything looked different now, full of possibility and promise. She had spent so long protecting herself from risk, from change, from the possibility of getting hurt. But standing there with Daniel, she realized that the biggest risk of all would be not taking this chance. "I'm scared," she admitted again. "Good," Daniel said, bringing her hand to his lips. "I'd be worried if you weren't. The best things in life are worth being scared for." Maya nodded, feeling the truth of his words settle in her bones. She thought about her dreams of writing, of telling stories that mattered. Maybe this was the beginning of her greatest story, yet not one she would write, but one she would live. "So," she said, trying to inject some lightness into the moment, "I guess We should probably finish packing these boxes. Daniel laughed, the sound rich and warm. I suppose we should. But Maya? Yes? I have a feeling that tomorrow, when we walk into that new office, everything is going to be different. Maya smiled, feeling the butterflies in her stomach transform into something that felt like hope. I have a feeling you're right. They spent the next hour finishing the packing, but the atmosphere between them had changed completely. Every accidental touch, every shared glance, every moment of laughter felt charged with new meaning. Maya found herself thinking about the future in ways she hadn't in years, not just about security and stability, but about joy and adventure and the possibility of building something beautiful with someone who saw her for who she truly was. As they prepared to leave, Daniel caught her hand one more time. Maya, I know this is all happening fast, and I know we have a lot to figure out, but I want you to know that I'm serious about this. About us. About changing my life to make room for what we could be together. Maya squeezed his hand, feeling the calluses that proved he wasn't just the privileged son everyone assumed him to be. I'm serious too, Daniel. More serious than I've ever been about anything. Even if it means facing my father. Even if it means dealing with office gossip and complications. Even then, Maya said firmly. Because you're right, the best things in life are worth being scared for. Daniel pulled her close one more time, and Maya marveled at how perfectly she fit against him. How right it felt to be in his arms. I'll see you tomorrow, he murmured against her hair. See you tomorrow, Maya agreed, though she was already dreading the time between now and then. As she walked to her car, Maya felt like she was floating. The parking garage that had always seemed cold and impersonal now felt like the setting for the most important moment of her life. She thought about calling her best friend, about sharing the news with someone, but she realized that this moment was too precious, too new to share just yet. Instead, she drove home with the radio turned up, singing along to love songs that suddenly felt like they had been written just for her. When she reached her apartment, she sat in her car for a few extra minutes, not wanting to break the spell of the evening. Her phone buzzed with a text message, and her heart leaped when she saw Daniel's name. Thank you for tonight, for taking a chance on us. Sweet dreams, Maya. Maya typed back quickly. Thank you for seeing me. For really seeing me. Sweet dreams, Daniel. As she finally made her way upstairs, Maya realized that everything had changed. Not just her relationship with Daniel, but her entire perspective on life. She had spent so long playing it safe, so long protecting herself from disappointment, that she had forgotten what it felt like to hope for something extraordinary. Standing in her small apartment, looking at the life she had built with such careful precision, Maya felt ready to risk it all for the possibility of something greater. She thought about her writing dreams, about the stories she had always wanted to tell, and realized that maybe it was time to start believing in happy endings. Again, the next morning would bring challenges, conversations that would be difficult, decisions that would reshape both their lives. But tonight, Maya allowed herself to simply feel grateful for the unexpected gift of love, for the way Daniel had walked into her carefully ordered world and turned it upside down in the most beautiful way possible. As she drifted off to sleep, Maya's last thought was that sometimes the most important help someone could offer wasn't assistance with moving boxes. It was the courage to help you move your entire life in a new direction. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, that help came from the person you least expected, at the moment you needed it most. The morning sun would rise on a new chapter of their story, one that neither of them could have imagined when they first met in that sterile office building. But tonight, surrounded by the promise of tomorrow and the memory of their first kiss, Maya-chan fell asleep knowing that she had finally found something worth taking the biggest risk of all. Love had found her in the most ordinary place, disguised as an offer to help with the most mundane task. And in accepting that help, she had accepted the possibility of a future she had never dared to dream of, a future where she could be loved not in spite of who she was, but because of it. The boxes were packed, the old office was ready to be left behind, and Maya was ready to step into whatever came next. Because sometimes, the most important moving you could do wasn't about relocating to a new building. It was about moving toward a new life, one brave choice at a time.